live in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Actionable Intelligence. I'm Eric Greitens. I'm honored to be with you tonight, and thank you again for joining us on the show that respects your intelligence, that honors you as a citizen, and that brings you the stories that the mainstream media is so often simply not willing to cover. You know, it's pretty striking how quickly the narrative from the left and the mainstream media has changed. It started right after the election. They simply said the election is over, and they, the media, decided that Joe Biden won. Accept it, they said, but Americans had questions. Some things just didn't seem right. And the mainstream media said there's no evidence of voter fraud. Well, then American citizens across the country and the president's legal team began to provide evidence that something at least irregular was going on here. And then the mainstream media narrative changed once again to, they said there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud. But the American people kept digging. The president's lawyers kept working. Hundreds of affidavits from across the country were filed, and brave Americans stepped forward, first-hand witnesses who bravely spoke out about what they saw take place on Election Day. Now, what did the mainstream media and the left do with this information? Well, they moved the goalposts once again, and now their message is there's no evidence from credible sources of widespread voter fraud. Well, take a listen to whistleblower Gregory Stenstrom, and you decide if he's credible.
My name is Gregory Stenstrom. I'm from Delaware County. I'm a father, a family man. I was a former commanding officer and executive officer in the Navy. I'm a veteran of foreign wars. I'm the CEO of my own private company. I'm a data scientist. I'm a forensic computer scientist. I'm an expert in security and fraud.
Well, now we are thrilled to be joined by Gregory Stenstrom himself. Gregory, good day. First of all, thank you for your service to the country. Go Navy. We appreciate having you on. And Gregory,
thank you very much, Governor.
You bet. You bet. For our viewers who haven't heard your testimony yet, let's just begin here. Where were you on Election Day, and what did you see?
I was, the first part of the day, I was in the city of Chester, which is in Delaware County. We're just south of Philadelphia. We have 425,000 registered voters in the county, and the city of Chester is about 40,000. So I spent the first part of the day there, and saw some irregularities, but for the most part, that wasn't the most interesting part of the day. About 6 o'clock in the evening, I went to the centralized voting center, and like several other places and counties which are strategic in the country, the voting center was a remote building, not easily observable. And we got there at 6 o'clock. I got there with a few other people, poll watchers and observers, and it took us 5 hours to get into the counting area. We were refused access, and we had to get legal assistance from the Project Amistad group that's part of the Thomas More Society. So they helped us get in. We got up there at 11 p.m. at night, saw a number of different irregularities. But in a nutshell, about 120,000 ballots, I think, should not be certified. I don't know how anyone in good conscience could certify 120,000 ballots, which are comprised of 50,000 ballots that I saw personally. A person who was not part of the process, who should not have been loading the USB sticks into the computers to change the vote. It was the voting warehouse supervisor, came in with a couple of dozen USB sticks. And then we also saw 70,000 unopened mail-in ballots that supposedly had already been counted. So the question was where did the votes come from? Where did these 50,000 votes come from the USB sticks? Where did the 70,000 ballots go? And how do we get 120,000 votes for Vice President Biden that are questionable? So that's it in a nutshell. Hopefully it's a summarizing of the testimony you saw in Gettysburg.
You bet, you bet. And Gregory, I just want to break this down for our audience a little bit. First, talk about, you said that you were refused entrance for 5 hours. On what grounds were they refusing you entrance? I mean, part of everyone knows by now the idea is that you want to have election observers in there from both parties to ensure a fair election. Why were they refusing you entrance?
The Delaware County Election Board is predominantly 2 members are Democrat and 1 member is a Republican. And over the last couple of months, during they were trying to scale up for adjust for COVID and consolidate polling locations and consolidate procedures. So the procedures were what was the problem? They weren't followed. They weren't well communicated. I was the sole poll watcher for Senator Killian. He was an incumbent. He was defeated, but I was the sole poll watcher that he had that went down to the county. The sole poll watcher he had down in the city of Chester. So beforehand, unlike previous elections where we could just go down as a representative and basically have a letter from the candidate himself. This year, the Delaware County Election Board required everyone be certified. So I had to be I was a certified poll watcher. I received a certificate with, it was notarized by them. So when I got there, I was supposed to go in, but apparently there'd been a procedure change that no one knew about. And we had a list that was, I called it the double secret probation list, which they only allowed a couple of dozen people up. And I was unaware of that. And they wouldn't even let us know. So when I first got there, they wouldn't even. It was pretty aggressive. It was hostile, and it took us 5 hours. And like I said, the lawyer to get in and straighten out and get on that double secret probation list, which only had a couple of dozen people on it, and no one was aware of that.
And then, Gregory, talk about once you got in, break down for our audience exactly what you saw happen and what should have been happening with these USB sticks that have this data on them.
Well, there's two phases to that. In the election evening, the USB sticks, there's 3 things that are collected from every voting machine: USB stick, a hard drive cartridge, and paper tape. Paper tape is the analog representation of what was on the 2 electronic devices. The cartridges, the hard drive cartridges, are kept aside to verify the USB sticks in future tabulations and if there's any disputes. So what supposed to happen is the election officials, the judge of elections, are supposed to take the ballots. They take the USB stick, they take the cartridge, they take the paper tape, they put them all in one bag, they seal it, they put a tag on it, a green tag, and they put a custody sheet on it, and that's what's supposed to go to the voting center. None of that happened. What happened was at about 11:30 at night, the sheriffs came in and they had basically a big tub, a Tupperware tub with little baggies of cartridges, USB stick, and the paper tape. And I said, "Whoa, stop! What are you doing?" And they said, "Where do they come from? Where's the custody sheets? Where's the bags?
Yeah.
Where, how do I know where these came from?" And they said, "Well, we collected these at 3 places within the county, and for ease of convenience, just tonight, which they didn't do during the primaries, just for tonight, we put everything in a tub for convenience for transportation." I said, "Well, this doesn't work for me." I objected to the senior law enforcement agents officer there, who was a deputy sheriff, and I objected to the clerk of elections, made every objection I could, and they said, "Hey, this is the way we're doing it. You're an observer. You can't interfere." So to make matters worse, they take the bags and then they take the USB stick, the cartridge, and the paper, and they split it all up. They throw it in the cardboard boxes, and I said, "Wait, what are you doing? You're breaking the forensic auditability. How are we ever going to put these together? At least keep the baggies together. Put the USB stick in the machine, put it back in the baggie with the cartridge and the tape. So if we have a dispute later,
Right.
I don't have to go digging through the box." So they did that for the better part of the night. We have 428 precincts. They counted 396, or so they said, what was up there. And that was just a disaster. There was no forensic accountability. It was forensically destructive. It was unconscionable. They didn't follow any of their procedures. Well, the next day and then the day after, the voting supervisor, the warehouse of the voting machine, shows up with the baggies, and we have photos of these. We have photos and video that we were able to capture, even though they were very, very surreptitious in the way they did it. He had a baggie of USB drives, holding by his side, and then he goes up to the machines and starts loading them in. And I saw this, and I said, "Stop!" Again, it was just crazy. And I said to the deputy sheriff again, I said, "Hey, Mike, you got to go and get Lorraine Hagan, who was the clerk of elections. Go get Lorraine. This can't happen." So he brought her out again. And I said, Lorraine, why is the Jim, I'm not going to say his name here only because I've seen what his title is, but I said, why is he loading these? And she said, you're here to observe and you can't interfere. And I said, well, I object. I've got a guy who's not part of the process. This is not in the election procedures we said we would do, loading USB sticks in. Well, he kept going and he just had his head down. He ignored us. I objected vigorously, and then when he was done, I said, I want to see the voting update. They had a screen there where they updated the votes. So it took them about an hour before they finally complied, and I don't think they wanted to, but I remember the time distinctly. It was 1:06, the vote was updated. And during the interim from the morning and the time, and nothing else happened during this time period, he was loading USB sticks, Vice President Biden gained 50,000 votes from those USBs. Now later they said, you'll see some things, and some people refuted my testimony and refuted what I said. And I said, well, this is easy. I begged the U.S. Attorney's Office in Philadelphia, spoke to them directly. I begged the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office. I begged anybody with a badge to come down. I said, all you need to do is get the forensic images of the computers. You can prove me wrong. They'll show when the USB sticks were plugged in, and I said, get the USB sticks. Every USB stick is encrypted and tied to the voting machine. I says, all you have to do is produce this, and then you can prove me wrong. Well, it's all gone. 47 USB sticks are gone.
We've only got about 20 seconds left here, so I so appreciate you stepping forward, appreciate you explaining all of this to our audience in great detail. Folks, that's Gregory Stenstrom, American patriot, a whistleblower who has stepped forward to let all of us know about what happened in Pennsylvania. We'll be right back.